Hi, Mike McMillan here, and today let's talk about using Swift Publisher to create documents, any kind of documents of your own. Okay, well, in my case, I have created over 100 documents through the years using Swift Publisher. I have created checklists like this, transcripts from live events that I've done, simple reports that I've either sold or given away, opt-in bonuses to grow my email list, ebooks, traditional ebooks, some of which I give away, some of which I sell. On top of that, I have a lot of PDF files that I've created with Swift Publisher that I've put inside of membership sites that I've created. And you're only limited by your own creativity in terms of what you can create with the software. Okay, well, let's have some fun with our Swift Publisher here today. I'm going to show you how to make some cool reports, checklists, ebooks, books, whatever. And basically, when you come into Swift Publisher, you're going to see a page that looks like this. I always click on, there are all these different things, templates set up that you could use for, different things. But I always click on blank and go to New Document, double click it. And here you can set up the parameters for your page. And I leave all these alone, just the way they are. You could change any of these things. But the only thing that I don't like is these page margins that they have coming up by default. And I like to have like 1-inch margins. So I hit one tab, one tab, one tab, one tab. And then when I click on Create, the page that comes up will look like this. Now, don't worry about this stuff over here, the stuff on top, the stuff over on the right. I'll show you what that's for and how you can use that. But basically, you can see that I have 1-inch margins all the way around the page right here. So that's how you can set up a new page to start with, to begin with. Okay? Now, one thing that I would suggest that you can do is you can come into Preferences right here, click on this, and you don't need to play around with these things except right here it says auto-save documents. You can have Swift Publisher auto-save your documents. So if your laptop battery dies, your power goes out in your house, whatever, you won't lose all your work. Now you can set this on 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. I put it on 10 minutes. That's where I leave it. And then every 10 minutes it will auto-save my page. Okay? Good. Hey, this is Mike. You can get my Swift Publisher Advanced Techniques ebook. It's completely free. It will download immediately when you click on the link below this video. Now, the next thing, right up here, you can use the zoom function, and you can make the page smaller or bigger if you want to, zoom in and do some fine detail work or whatever. I like to leave it set on about 75%, but that's your choice, your prerogative. But that's how I get started here. Now, up here, this is called, I call it the page ribbon. I don't know what it's really called, but it just shows your pages. And since this is a blank page, there's nothing in this. And if you want to add pages anytime at all, like in the beginning, before you start working on your document, or after you've got a bunch of pages, you can click on the plus sign, and you can add as many pages as you'd like to your document. To delete pages, you just click on the page you want to delete, hit the minus sign, and you can delete pages just like that. Okay? Good. Now, let me just show you something, and we're going to do something silly that is not going to make sense to you, but just to show you how the pages work here, let's, I've got some clip art here. I've got a girl that's doing yoga or whatever, and I'm going to put her on page 1. I'll create a new page and put a football player in there. And I'll create a new page and let's get something else in here. Just, pets, whatever. Here's Fido. Here's a dog. Okay, that's a cool looking dog. And I'll add a 4th page and I'll put a parakeet in there. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is. But now I've got 4 different pages. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Now one thing you can do in Swift Publisher, anytime at all, you can always reorder pages. And this can be useful, especially if you get a bigger document, 5 or 10 pages. You may decide that you want to change the order of some of your pages, and that's very easy to do. You can take, like right now, this this parrot is on the 4th page, and I can click on this and just drag it and move it back here, and now you can see he's on the 2nd page, and the 4th page becomes the dog picture. So you can reorder. I could take the football player and move him to page 1, and now he's on the 1st page. So that's how you can reorder pages at anytime you'd like. Okay, so that's a kind of a useful tool. Okay, well, now that we've learned how to set up a document within Swift Publisher, now we can start working on adding some text to a document. Well, to add text, you can't simply come in and start typing text and have it show up. Swift Publisher works on the basis of what they call text blocks. And to type text in here, you have to create a text box. And there are a couple ways that we can do that. We can come up here to Insert, right here, and come down to Text, and click on Text Box. And that gives us this box here that we can, double click on this, and I can type text in there. Okay, and I can make the text as big or as small, this box as big as or as small as I'd like to, and I can make it cover the entire page if I want to. But yeah, and also in here, once we create a text box, we can come in and click our text tool over here, and we can change the font size of our text using this device right up here. Okay, and we can change the color of our text. We could make it green, or we could make it red, or whatever. We'll go with black. And you can do that. Now over here, you can pick whatever font you'd like. Now it's set on Helvetica right now. I always use Arial type. I like that, but whatever. And you can make it regular, italic, bold, italic, whatever you want to do. And you can change the size over here. Make it 13, 36, whatever you'd like. You can also just type it in up here if you want something different. But yeah, that's how you can put text in there and then change the parameters of the text, the color, the font, the size, all those things. You can also, I know this is a nonsense word, but if you highlight your text, you can come down here and change the spacing. I don't do this, but you can change the spacing between the characters if you want to. I leave it set at 0. You can also change the spacing between the lines and make the lines tighter or make the lines farther apart, And again, I just leave that set at 0, just like that. Yeah, that's close enough. And so those are some things that you can do with text. Now, the other way, instead of going to Insert Text, you can come up here to this Text tool and click on Text Box, and you get this icon right here. And again, you get a text box just like before. And you can then drag it out. I would drag it out if I was writing a report or an ebook or something. I'd make it cover the whole page, but whatever you want to do. And again, you can have as many text boxes as you'd like. Now, let me just show you something. I'd like to show you some text, but you don't want to watch me type for half an hour to fill this page up with text. So I'm going to use some what they call lorem ipsum text. It's an old Latin from an old Latin book, like 1,000 years old or something. And you can look up lorem ipsum online, and there's a website, and it'll generate this kind of text for you. It's just dummy text you can use for designers, copywriters, that you can use to see how a page would look when it has some text on it. So I can come down here, and I'll click in there and make sure I've got my text tool over here. And on my Mac, I'll hit Command V, and that pastes the text in there, and there you can see it. Again, I could take this text and make it bigger, make it smaller, change the font, change the bold, italic, anything like that. But one thing, I had 3 paragraphs of text, and you can see there are only 2.5 showing. And when I click on this, you can see this little red plus sign right there. Okay, anytime you're typing and you see a box with a plus sign down in the lower right hand corner, it means there's more text. Your text block is not big enough. So there are different things you could do. One is you could just grab your text box and stretch it down and make it bigger so that there's room for all that text to fit in there. And you can see that red plus sign has gone away. The other thing you could do is you could highlight your text and just come over here and make it smaller. Make the text smaller, and then it would fit in your text box better. But that's how you can create a text box and change the font, the color, the size, anything like that. So yeah, now with this block of this lorem ipsum text, let's take a look at using columns, because sometimes in a publication you may want to have text appear in 2 or 3 or 4 different columns, probably not more than that, but maybe 2 columns, 3 columns, whatever. So what you can do is simply come up here to where it says Insert, okay, and go down to Layout Guides right there. And this lets you add columns. So for example, I have 1 row of text. I'll leave that the same. But for columns, I could type in, say, 3, or I can use these arrows and go 3. I want 3 columns of text. The gutter is the space between the columns, and you can adjust that also. Now I'm going to make this, I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to make this, let's make it 4/10 of an inch between the columns, okay? And now, don't click on the whole page, because that's going to do something funky. You won't like it when it comes out, I can promise. So make sure you clicked on the margin area, okay, and then click OK. All right? Now, what we've got now is right here, we could take this text. Suppose we've got a column of text right there. And let me click on this, and you can see this is 4/10 of an inch between each of these columns, and I still have my same margins out there. So I'm going to click on this, hit Command C. I'm going to copy that text. Command V, that pastes that copied text in. I'll hit Command V again. And right now you can see, let's take it, put it on preview mode, and you can see right here that we now have 3 columns of text. I could have made 2 columns, 10 columns, whatever. That's way too small. But that's how you can use this Insert, Layout Guides to create multiple copies of or multiple columns of your text. So it's pretty easy to do. If you ever need to use multiple copies or multiple columns, I got copies on my mind, whatever. That's how you can make columns within your pages, if you'd like to. Okay? Okay, well, hey, we're doing great. What we've talked about so far is mainly text, how to add text blocks, how to add text, change the font, the size, the color, make it italic or bold or, whatever. But we've been talking about text, but what about images? A lot of times in documents, you may want to put some images in there to spice them up a little bit. Pictures of yourself or, whatever it is. So the simplest way, one of the simplest ways, and there are different ways to add images to a document inside of Swift Publisher, is just like this. If you have an image on your desktop, like right here, there's an image that says girl, and you just drag it in anywhere you'd like it to appear, and it will pop right in there. Here I have this. Now this girl doesn't really have anything to do with what I'm talking about on this page, but that's okay. So I have this girl right here, and the problem is she's covering up some of that text. So what we can do is come up here and make sure you're in your text tool right here, and then here are all the different things you can do with your text. We'll scroll down all the way to the bottom and click on the image, so the image is highlighted like that, and then click on this Object Causes Text Wrap. And see what it did? It moved all the text over and out of the way so it flows around this image. And that's not the way I like to do this, but that could work for you. Okay, that could look good. The problem is there's a whole bunch of space, dead space, white space there. So if I do that, and by the way, there are different ways you can insert it, so it'll look like that and other ways. So it's extra space. If I come down here and I type in something like 20 points, okay, and then I hit return, see what it did? It put 20 points of more white space in there. It just gives me more white space. I don't like the looks of that in here. So, you know, I'm not going to keep it that way. But one thing you can do is, let me click on this again. I'll take the text wrap off. And another way that you can do this to manage images is to come up here and take this right here. Normally it says a line tool, and you can draw lines with that. I showed you that earlier. There's also a thing called a spline tool, and that lets you draw sort of free-form lines and make, you know, different shapes. So what I do with that is come in here, and now it looks like a pen, and I'm going to put some points in here. And what I'm going to do is just start up here around the top of her head and come around like this and trace an outline, not a perfect outline. I'm not trying to get a perfect outline, but I'm going to just come down and make an outline around her body that looks just like this. Takes just a second. I'm trying to be real careful. You don't have to be necessarily be this careful with it, but yeah, so I'm going to draw around her image just like that. Okay, now see how this line is selected just like that? What I can do now is come back in, and I haven't selected the image. What's selected right now is this line around her. So now if I come in and says object causes text wrap, see what it did? It made this, let me get my pointer tool, it made this so that the text sort of flows around her body like that. And I could come back in and select this, excuse me, and come into my paintbrush tool like this and see where it says stroke. I'm going to take that stroke out. So it's still there, but it's not going to show in black like that. Okay, so now it looks like this, and see it flows a little bit better. I could actually take this and I don't know, some of these I could move them in a little bit more like that, and then come in and again select that and go to my text tool, come back in, and let me do this again there, and see that's a little bit better. But you can do it like this using that spline tool to get a more contoured text wrap so that it you know, comes in and flows around her a little bit better. So that's one thing you can do. Okay, well, okay, that's great. So let me come in here, and I'm going to take the girl, and oops, I took the line out. Okay, so what about other ways to get some images in there? Well, if you come up here in the left-hand column, right now it says symbols. These are all symbols I could put in there. I could click, and any one of these, if I click on it, it goes in there. And you know, you might want to use some of those sometimes. But what I'm going to do is come up to, it doesn't really matter, but since we're talking about people, I could click on people, and there are all these images that that we could use. And any one of these, you know, that you think would work well, you could come in. Here's a guy who's reading a book or whatever. I'll click on that, and it brings that image in. So you can use any of these images that you find in there. Okay, and again, I could use a text wrap and wrap my text around him. I'll take that out. But any of these categories, for example, pets, if you're looking for an image of a pet, you need a little kitty, okay, you can put that in. And you could, of course, you can always shrink them down, make them bigger, smaller, whatever you want to do. But again, you could use a text wrap function and do that. But there are all kinds of categories here, like, you know, nature, and all these things, whatever. Here's a picture of the moon, you know, you could bring that in. So there are things like that that you can do to bring images in. Now, another way is under File, under Insert, we could come to where it says Image, and it says from File. So what this will do, it takes just a second, what it'll do is it will look on my computer what's on my computer, just like this. And it shows all my folders and everything. Again, I'll just use this girl again because she's the only image on my desktop, I think. But anything that's on your desktop, you can scroll through and find something you want, double click on it, and there we have our image again. So those are some ways to bring images in and to use text wrap to bring them in and, you know, flow the text around the images. Okay, so that's kind of a good thing to do. Now, one other thing is up here, these are called smart shapes, okay? And these are just shapes of different things, you know. If you want an arrow, you could click on this and it brings an arrow in, just like this. Maybe you need an arrow in there. And then also you can come to your paintbrush tool and click on fill, and you can fill this with, you know, any color, like red. You could have a red arrow, or you could have a green one, or a gray one, or whatever. So yeah, you can change the opacity if you want, you know, like that. But you can use any of these smart shapes that would help you out. Like down here, you know, the star, whatever it is. Any of these shapes, and you can resize them. You can make them as big or as small as you'd like to. Just grab one of the corners and, you know. So there are a lot of these in here that you could use. One thing, I guess, that I think I showed you this before. If I didn't, I'll show you right now. You can come in here and see right now it's showing like where my text blocks are. It's showing where the margins are around the outside. If you click on preview mode, it'll take all that out. I think I showed you that before, but I just want to make sure. Okay. Under you know, if I highlight some text, let me just show you this real quick. Under text styles, you can pick any of these pre-formatted text styles and sizes. You know, if you want to, that's all good to go. And then the fonts, here's where you can access the fonts and use any of these fonts that you'd like to. So yeah. Anyway, that is how Swift Publisher works. When you get all done, and I'll just show you that anytime you would like to save yourself, not save yourself, but anyway, save the document, you can come down to save, and it does auto saves, but if you're between auto saves, you can come down and click on save, and it will save it. Okay, the only other thing is when you're all done with your document, you can come up here, and if you haven't saved it, if you're between auto saves, you can just click on save, it'll save it. And then you can come down to export right here, and I called this, let me just type something nonsensical, this funny name. I'll export this, and then I'll pick where I want to save it to on my desktop. Okay, right there. And you can save it different formats. Just like this, I would save it as a PDF file, and then that makes it like an ebook. You could put it online, somebody could download it, you could sell it, whatever you're going to do. So I'll save this, but then we could come in and here it is, and when I open this up, there's my page 1, and here's this second page. You know, I've deleted some of that stuff in there, but that's how you can save it as a PDF file. Okay. Okay, well, I've showed you how to work with text, how to add text boxes or text blocks to a page, and how to change the font, the size, the color, all that stuff, how to make it bold and italic with your text. So you should be able to set up a page kind of like this. And this is a pretty plain page. It comes from one of my ebooks. As a matter of fact, I give this ebook away in this video at the end for people that are interested. But it's a pretty plain page. I've just got some text in here, and as you can see, let me click on my text tool up here. The main text copy, body copy, is 12-point text. It's either, I don't know if it's Helvetica or Arial. And then the title up here, I made 15-point text. I made it bold, make it a little bigger. There are a couple places where I made the text bold because, you know, I thought those things were important, make them stand out a little bit. And then down here, I just put some text in here. By the way, this is all just one big text block on this page. When I started out, what I did is I just typed this text in here, okay, and it looked like this. And once I had it in there, I made this Times. I changed the font to Times. I hit Tab twice. I came down here, I hit Tab twice, and then I came down here and I hit Tab twice to get it over into the middle of the page there. And then I just used my line tool, like right here. I showed you how to use that before. I'm not going to line this up or anything, and then you could take the paintbrush tool and make the stroke bigger, as big as you want. And that's how I got these two strokes, these two lines in there. So we'll take that out. But it looks pretty plain, and I could juice this up a little bit. Let me show you how to do that, how we can do that. Let's look at this page one more time, and then let's go to this page. Okay, and it looks very similar, but you can see what I did. I added this is the title of the ebook, okay, and I wanted that to show up on every page, at the top of every page. I put a couple very thin lines underneath it, again using my line tool, and then up here I made two line boxes around the whole page, and it just sort of sets it off. And let me squeeze it down a little bit. Right here, and you can see it just sets it off a little bit. Now, one thing you might notice is I can click on my main text box, but I can't click on these other things that I've just recently added, and there's a reason for that. The reason is if I come up to content pages, we're normally in content pages, but come down to master pages, okay? And what I did is I created what they call a master page. Anything you put on a master page is going to show up on every single page in your document, unless you don't want it to show up on a particular page for a reason. I'll show you that. But you always have a blue background in your master pages. So all I did is I added some text up here, and I added these two skinny lines with my line tool, and I made two boxes. And to make the boxes, I just I came up here and I clicked on this, and you can see there are all these different shapes you can put in there. And if I click on this box, I get a box that looks like this. And to make the boxes around the outside, I took a box and I dragged the sides over. You can see how I could do this, and I won't drag the bottom one down, but that's how I made the bigger box. And then I did the same thing to get this smaller box. Now this bigger box, right up here, if you see this is a 2-point line. The skinnier box, the one on the inside, is only a 1-point line. So that's how I got the sort of the fat line and the skinny line in there. And then if I come back to my content pages right here, that's how I got that. So that every page, now these next pages are not going to do much for you, but you can see that this page doesn't look like that right now, because I would have to come in and say apply master page. It was called master page A, and now see this contents doesn't fit in there real well because it's too high up there. But I just wanted to show you, and then same thing here, I would have to apply a master page. But that's how I got this in here, and got it all set up. So every page will look like this. Now there's one extra thing that I want to show you that's pretty important, and that is when I come back into master pages right here, you can see the bottom looks just like this, and I want to have page numbers, and I don't want to have to number each page manually. If this were a 40-page booklet, that's way too much work. So what I would do is I would say, okay, let's come up here to this box tool, and we're going to make a rectangle, and I'm going to make the rectangle right down here. Make it look just like that, okay? But what I want to do with this rectangle, for color fill, I want to make sure I'm on white. See, it could be any color. I want to make sure I'm on white like this. And then I want to come into where it says stroke and unclick it so there's no stroke there. So see what I did? I made a space in here. I might even make this a little bit wider. I have a space in here where I could put something, and that's where I'm going to put my page numbers. So now what I could do is come up to Insert, come down to Page Number, and I get this kind of silly looking thing. It doesn't seem to make much sense, but let me make this bigger so that it shows up a little bit better. And if I double click on this, do it again. again. There we go. If I double click on this, you can see what comes up. It looks like this. And what we need to do is we want to have the first page be number 1. Okay, obviously. And I want to start, I don't want to start from the first page. I want to start from the second page, and I'll show you why in just a second. So I'll type 2 in there. Okay, just like that. And then I'll come in and I'll drag this down so that it's pretty much right in the middle. Now I'm going to have to tweak this in a minute. I'll show you that. But we'll come down. So here's my page again. Now let's go back to the content pages. Okay, and you can see what happened down here. Let me blow this up again. Down at the bottom, what we're looking at says page 2 of 5. Okay, and there's a reason for that, because page 2, let me just show you. Page 1 I have set up like this. This is a graphic that I made in Photoshop. Okay, you could almost make this in Swift Publisher, not exactly, but you could come close to making something like this, Swift Publisher. But I don't want to number that page. It's not really a page that you read. So I came in and click on the second page here, and now let me come up here and right here, and I'm going to click over here, and it says Apply Master Page, and that was Master Page A that I had. See what it did? It made this right here. Let's blow it up. It made this say page 1 of 5. Now really it's the second page, but I'm not counting the first page because it's the cover. So I made it page 1 of 5 because I have 5 numbered pages like that. Okay, so that's how you could do it. Now if I came to the second page, it would say page 2 of 5. And again, I could center this. That's not centered just exactly right. I would bring this over just a little bit, and then we'll try that and see how that there. See, that's centered a little bit better. So that's how you can add page numbers. It saves you a ton of work because you won't have to number every page manually. Now, if you didn't have these boxes around here like I do, you wouldn't need to make this white box on your master page. You could just click on master pages, put it wherever you want to, and then set the page numbering. So that's how you can add page numbers. It's a big time saver, and I think that you'll use that quite a bit. Okay, now a couple things that might be helpful from time to time is let's do preview mode up here. And one thing is, anytime you're making a document, you're working on something, sometimes you might want to add a guideline someplace. Like if you're trying to line things up, like if I was trying to line up both of these lines right here and right here, I can drag a guide in here, and it, you know, I can have as many guides as I'd like. You know, I could put one over here, any place. But on some pages, as they get complicated, it helps to, you know, create some guides in there. And then when you're done with the guides, you just drag them back over to the ruler. It makes a little pop and it disappears. Again, we can drag this one over to the ruler. It makes a little pop and it disappears. So anyway, that may be helpful. Now another thing is if you'd like to, and sometimes this is helpful, if I come up here to where it says View, and I come down to where it says Show Grid. Well, what does that mean, Show Grid? Well, there's a grid behind your page that's actually always there, but it doesn't show. And it's just all these little boxes. So you've got a grid so that you can see that, you know, when you try to line things up, it may help if you put some boxes in here, put some different things. If you have a grid, it may help you line things up when you create pages. And then you can go up to View and hide the grid. You probably don't want it there all the time. But those two things are kind of useful. And yeah, so that might work out good for you. Okay, I'd like to show you one other thing really quick. This is just a page, and I made this page in Swift Publisher. The main reason I wanted to show you this is because down here I've added some graphics, and I've, you know, up here you can click on one of these. You can make arrows, and let me see if I can grab that. I missed it. There we go. You can make arrows and then take your paintbrush tool and give them a fill, make it any color you'd like to, and make a fill. That's how I made this arrow over here. And you can change the the shape of the arrow, do whatever you want to do with it. And then you could put some text in front. So for example, like right here, if I just take some of this, let me just copy some of this text right there. Command C, I'll copy it, and then I'll paste that in. And you can see right here that I could put some text in there. Now, one thing that I don't know if I showed you before, I think I did, but I'm not sure, is that you can have, for example, with this text, let me put it partially in, partially out. And up here under Arrange, you can, whoops, I have to click on something. I'll click on that text box right there. Under Arrange, you can say Bring to Front, and that means the text will be in front of the arrow, okay? Or I could say Send to Back, and that will put the text behind this. Now, I wouldn't want to do that, obviously, but there are times when you may want to, move certain things to the front, other things to the back, and you do that under Arrange right here. So that's handy. It's helpful to know. And then basically, let me take these things out of there. Like right here, I made a yellow box. I made a bunch of little lines in there to simulate the text. And then I made a white box in front. I put a border around it. So, for example, up here, if I make a, well, let's do this. If I make a box like this, and if I could fill it with any color, but I could also put a shadow around it like this. And if I scroll up, you can move the shadow in closer. It's kind of a gray color now. If I make the shadow darker, you can get something like that. And I do have shadows like around this white box and this white box down here. And so, yeah, you can do things like that. But you're only limited by your own imagination as far as how you make your pages, what you make them look like. And there are all kinds of other things that you can do to spice them up. So I just wanted to share that with you, okay? So the last thing that I want to show you here in our little video is how to put in a hyperlink, a link to an external page website. And so what I'll do is I'm going to come in right here, and I'm going to paste in, I already typed this. This is a link to YouTube, okay? And what you can do is highlight wherever you want a link, and you've got to make sure you got the www, the whole exact link in there, okay? And then come in and hit Control and click on your mouse pad, make a click, and see where it says Make Link, okay? And see what that did? It turned it blue with an underline, and if I double click on this, I would go to YouTube. So that's how you can add a link to your publication anywhere you'd like to. Okay? Very good. Now, I mean this from my heart. Please believe me. I wish you nothing but tremendous success in all that you do on YouTube. Okay? You guys take care. You're all great. And we'll see you again on a future video.